Well, hello, everybody. Happy Monday. I hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful day. I am beyond excited because in my Zoom with me today, I have Lisa Marie Barron. She's the Member of Parliament, actually, for the NDP for the Nanaimo and Ladysmith area. Welcome to the show, Lisa. I'm so happy you're here. How are you?
Thank you so much, Kathy. I'm so happy to be back again. Your show is one of the favorites of
I
mine to be on before, so I'm happy to be back again and to be able to have a good conversation with you.
I am really happy as well. You're one of my favorite guests as well because I think that you and I, our roots kind of come from a lot of the same stuff. We're cut from a lot of the same cloth. And so it's really a privilege to share this time with you. For our listeners who may not have an idea who you are, in the big picture of things, would you mind just sharing a little bit of your backstory and what brought you to politics? And before we do that, I should preamble this by saying that this particular recording was done before the election was called, after Trudeau has stepped down, kind of in between all of those things. And so in this moment, the election has not been called. So just to preface that bit of it, and then let's have our conversation, shall we?
Absolutely. Yes. So as we speak, the Liberals are currently in the process of announcing who the new leader is going to be. So I'm certain by the time this airs, so much will have happened. We'll just continue to take it as it comes. But yes, Kathy, a little bit about me. I am the Member of Parliament for Nanaimo-Ladysmith, and how I got into politics is not what you typically hear. I was by far not born and bred to go into politics. I ended up in politics coming from a place of community advocacy, and the more advocacy I was involved in, eventually ended up being asked to run federally. But my background, I was a school board trustee, so that was my first run in politics, was in 2018. It's a different level of politics, of course, as a school board trustee, but I ran in 2018, was successful in getting elected. I decided to run. I had two school-age children. I was very much in a lower socioeconomic status, raising my two children as a single parent, and saw the inequities firsthand. We have a lot to be proud of here in Canada, and there's still more work to make sure that all children show up to school with their bellies full, with all the supports that they need to be able to learn, build those friendships, and to be successful at school. And I thought, you know what, this is a great opportunity for me to be able to share the experiences as a parent who knows what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck, and decided to put my name forward to run as a school board trustee. My time in that role was fantastic. I really loved working as a school board trustee. I worked in mental health and addiction, specifically with youth, at the same time as I was working as a school board trustee. And the pandemic hit. That was a lot of challenges, of course, happening around that time. And when I got asked to run federally, it's funny, I get told maybe I shouldn't talk about this, but I think it's important for me to talk about this. My response was, well, I'm not a politician. That was my immediate response. And I don't remember if I shared that with you before, but there's a reason I had that response. I had that response because I was a school board trustee, and I considered myself to be a community advocate. So yes, technically I was already a politician. I was in a position of governance. I was elected by the community. But I did see myself very much as a community advocate. And to imagine myself running in provincial or federal politics, it just felt so far away. I never saw myself in politics. I never saw myself as a federal politician. And let's be honest, in federal politics, there weren't a lot of people who sounded like me, who looked like me, who
No,
had the
not at
same
all.
background as me.
Mm.
And so it took a little bit for me to wrap my head around whether this was the right path forward for me, whether I'd be able to continue the advocacy that I was passionate about, whether it would be a good fit for me and my family to take this, to put my name out there, to potentially become a member of parliament. And it definitely was the best decision that I could have made. I have I've been in this position now as Member of Parliament. I got elected in 2021. So I'm in my fourth year now, and it has just been such an incredible, both a whirlwind and an honor all at once.
No kidding.
Getting my feet on the ground, getting to experience being in the chamber and standing up and advocating and representing the good people here in Nanaimo-Ladysmith. It has been such an experience and one that I hope to continue. That there's a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of things take time, and seeing things come to fruition, seeing, the work that still has to come. I will be 100% putting my name forward to run again in the next election in the hope that I can continue on as Member of Parliament moving forward.
So what strikes me, as you said, you weren't a politician. You kind of were, and then you were because of the school district part of it. But the school district is like, when I think about that table, it's very strong people advocating for their kids. Their kids are school age as yours are, and there's this push. Of course, I have a lot of good friends that are school district trustees, and I adore them. I don't know if I could have taken that step. I think I might have been a little bit afraid. Were you a little bit unnerved to take this next role on?
A little bit would be an understatement.
Right?
It has been, I think this is my life is definitely a life of what is that saying about do something that scares you and every day I am doing something, at least one thing that scares me. And I, I really can say that I'm proud of that because when I look back and I say, oh, geez, look at that. I did that. Well, maybe I could do this now. And then, so it's this constant progression of doing things that scare me because they're the right thing to do, because of the positive outcome that can result from doing things that scare me, and being able to build my confidence in myself through that. But also, another thing, Cathy, that's really important through that is having incredible women, having incredible people standing along my side. Because all those things that have been so scary to me, I've had people beside me reminding me that I'm capable, reminding me that I'm not alone, reminding me that we're in this together. So it has really been an incredible collective experience walking together through, the many reasons that this work can be scary and seeing the benefits that have come out of it as a result.
I'm so glad that you brought that up, especially the women's part, because in fairness, we've recently come through International Women's Day. And I had the great privilege of seeing you the other night when we were at the Nanaimo Women's Business Network to celebrate women for International Women's Day. And I'm curious for yourself, is there a woman or a group of women that you have been mentored by that you or any one particular person who you may have, alive or dead, who have really inspired you to not only take this work on, but the work of advocacy as a whole? What are your thoughts on that?
This question here is always so big for me because there are so many. There are so many women. I'm always afraid to mention one because then I'm going to forget another. But, I guess, first of all, being raised by a strong woman, how can I not mention my own mother? She has
Yes, of
been,
course.
she raised myself and three brothers, and we had a huge extended family. She was the youngest of a big family, and she has just been such an incredible representation of strength, of, what women are capable of. She is somebody that I looked up to. I will say somebody, and this is somebody who's quite humble, so I'm sure she'll of course appreciate me saying it. But when I went back to university as a mature student with two kids, as a single mom, I will say, that was again something that really scared me. Is this risk going to be worthwhile for me and my family? Am I wasting my time and money? Should I be doing something else? Is this something that's going to move us together? Because, as I came from working paycheck to paycheck. I didn't have money. I didn't have a trust fund for my education. I had to take out
Mm.
loans and take risks. And so my first year and my second year, I will admit it was a struggle. I did what I needed to do to get through the classes, but it was in my third year. It was about halfway through that I had to take a statistics class. And I was so nervous. I mean, it's funny. Statistics, math, and public speaking and heights, these are all things that people are afraid of. And math can be intimidating. It was intimidating to me back then. And so I walked into the statistics class, and the first class I went, nope, gonna push that off for a little bit longer. And I didn't go back again. So I dropped out of the classes. I had other classes to do. Point is that when I went back again the next semester, because I had to take this class, the same instructor said, "Oh, are you gonna stick around this time?" She remembered me. And I explained to her my intimidation with statistics and I was nervous about how it was gonna go. And she just took me right under her wing.
Mm.
She showed me, she made sense of the numbers. She explained to me how, anytime that I would make myself available to go and meet her in her office, she took the time to explain things to me. And I actually ended up loving statistics. I never
Mhm.
thought I'd see the day, but I loved it. I ended up with an A plus in that class.
Wow.
And she opened up doors that I would have never even thought of. I got research opportunities. I did work in the community. I
Mm.
was able to apply that experience into career opportunities, into further contract work in the community. It's just such a good example of somebody who saw in me what I wasn't yet ready to see and the potential of what I could do. And
Mm.
because she gave me the space and the time, it really did that and other experiences, of course, helped change the trajectory of me and
Mm.
my kids' lives, of opening up the world of possibility of what I could do.
Well, and it makes you such a great mentor for your kids too, because a good teacher can open up the windows to the spirit in a way that no other human being can, right? Like that ability to see the nugget, that part of another human being that can be explored and watch them open up and explore for themselves what a new beginning might look like. And so I'm curious as to whether or not some of her teachings you're using when you're raising your own kids. Are you seeing some of those parallels there in the way that they open their eyes to the world around them?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. It is so, as a mom, I see it firsthand what a difference it makes when my children have relationships with the adults that are teaching them things. The difference in high school when they have a teacher that they like, that is, that's getting to know them as human beings. That investment that they're making makes a huge difference in their desire to want to do well in the class.
Sure.
And so yeah, I've seen that firsthand. My kids have done incredible things alongside incredible teachers through
Mhm.
their time in schooling here, and it was always the teachers that took the time to be silly with them and to
Mhm.
apply the learnings to real
Absolutely.
life that have made a real difference for them.
Absolutely, absolutely. No doubt about that. But you also remind me, in some of the things that you've said about, the way that when we open our eyes and we can see the development of things, and anything that is possible. Right now, the world's a messy place.
Yeah.
Kids are not sure where they're going to end up. Parents are not sure where they're going to end up. There's a lot of, I'm sorry to say, a lot of fear. There's a lot of negativity. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of insecurity. And I don't want to sit in the negative for too long, but part of the learning process is understanding who we are through all of that. We learn from adversity. more than we learn from success. And so I'm really curious about how you're seeing, just in these few weeks that, down south has made some of the choices that they've made. Not the people, of course, but an individual. What does that look like in our big picture of things, and how do you help calm the waters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've said it so well of what's happening right now. And I really do feel that it is my responsibility as an elected official representing people here in Canada in Nanaimo-Ladysmith to be giving information, to be sharing concerns, to be listening to concerns, and making sure that people are coming together as Canadians. It that is something that we are known for. We are known for taking care of one another. We are known for our pride in what differentiates us from other countries, right? You're so right that there are incredible people in the United States. There are so many reasons why we have been, they're our closest neighbor. They've been our closest trading partner. We've had a strong relationship with the United States for many years for a reason, and it is so incredibly sad to see what
Mhm.
is happening with the chaos that is being created by a president that is a convicted felon and is running, is doing the work as president as if he's playing a game of Monopoly, as if he's, looking at expanding his hotels in Las Vegas. He's completely disconnected from the harms that are being created as a result of his greed. He's doing all that is possible to prop up his billionaire friends. It's very concerning. And the people that are feeling the impacts most are those that are most vulnerable. Trans people in the 2S LGBTQIA plus community, women with reproductive rights, seniors who are living off fixed incomes, families. We're going to see the impacts being spread far and wide throughout the United States. And we are not separate from that. We share a border with the United States. We're going to feel those implications. We know the tariffs that are all over the place. One day it's on one thing, the next day it's on another. I think we can expect some ongoing chaos from Donald Trump. Now, one thing that I have seen, I'm out knocking on doors all the time, talking to people in the community. I mean, this is the job where I'm talking to people all day, every day. Even if I'm just running into a grocery store to grab a carton of milk, I'm chatting with people. And I will say that one thing that I've seen a real shift in is this has really shooken up Canadians. It has been a real reminder of, who we are as Canadians, what we believe in. And I'm noticing that people have an incredible sense of pride on who we are here as Canadians. And that has really united us. I have seen Canadians united more than I have my entire time in the position as Member of Parliament, which is really good. Things have been challenging. I don't want to get too much into partisanship, but I will say that there's a lot of division and hate that has been spread here in Canada. We are not. I'm trying to think of the word. We are seeing similar behaviors and patterns happening here in Canada, which is so unfortunate. We need to also be very aware of that and calling it out and making sure that we don't see a future that the Americans are currently experiencing. And so I really want to highlight how important this upcoming election is, that we are recognizing those who are there to divide, those who are there to, quite frankly, pick on those most vulnerable in our communities. As Canadians, we need to be standing together right now. When things like this are happening in the United States, we need to be strong together. We need to be united. We need to be standing up against bullies. And us being united as Canadians is the best thing that we can do to move forward in a positive direction, and to show you show the United States, show Trump, how we take care of one another here in Canada.
Well, and I'm really glad that you said it the way that you did, because I think that what people don't understand necessarily is that the trickle down effect of all of that is very, very real. It is not, it is happening, and it's happening across the country. But I also resonate that additional sense of ownership and pride that we have as a country now. I know that Canada's made a lot of mistakes. I know that we are going through a lot with, First Nation communities for some of the atrocities that have happened with, so many populations on our continent. I know that there's a lot that's not good for sure. But I also know that there's a lot that is. And I think that I don't want to see people throw the baby out with the bathwater. Canadians have been known to, as you said, stand together. And I have to just say this out there, and again, nonpartisan, but I have to tell you, I'm really pleased with what Trudeau did as this is all going on the way it is. I think some of the things that he said, despite what your politics are or aren't, I loved the way he basically looked him in the eye the other day in a television screen and said, Donald, this is for you. We are not backing down. We are strong. We are true. We are Canadian, and we will not take this easily or lightly. And have seen since that time, and I don't know if you've experienced it, but I felt at this time that the people that I'm around that used to be, our government's this and our government's that, are looking at it a little bit differently. Right? The tables are turning. When you and I were together the other day at the International Women's event, we talked about more important than ever that we pay attention to elections and we pay attention to our vote.
Yeah.
And I think I'd like to hear from you, if it's okay, Lisa. Many people have forgotten what the politics are. I'm not talking about the parties, but the understanding of why the vote that you make on in Nanaimo it matters to what's going on in Ottawa, or
Yeah.
matter like can you help us understand that a little bit from a really rudimentary, high level kind of place for those that may have forgotten why we need to vote?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the reason why, just to put in perspective, I got involved in federal politics is because I was seeing firsthand as a school board trustee the trickle down impacts of a federal government that wasn't making the appropriate investment or being, making the decisions required. And what was happening is that when we have the federal government not making the investment required, well, now it gets felt by the province. It's felt by the municipalities. It gets felt by school boards. It gets felt by the communities. We have school districts that are trying to provide the best education for students when I think it was almost 90% of the budget that we had as school board trustees was allocated to wages. Well, that doesn't leave much room for all of the other things that kids are coming into the classroom with, the complexity of their mental health, the fact that more and more kids are coming to school hungry.
Mhm.
These are the reasons why I wanted to get involved in federal politics, that we can see those investments made right up front. So, for example, the school foods program was something that was really close to my heart as a school board trustee, also when I worked in the district as a parent. And I was able to then go into federal politics and push for a national school food program so that it doesn't matter where you live across Canada, children are able to be provided with healthy, nutritious food to sustain them throughout the school year. We're the only G7 country who, prior to this rolling out right now, who didn't have a national school food program. That says a lot in itself. But
Mhm.
that's just one example of how the federal government can play a big part. We're looking at the biggest expansion in public health care in generations with the dental care program rolling out. We just got news that pharmacare, that finally the federal government was signed a deal with the BC provincial government to see pharmacare expanding and rolling out here in British Columbia. A national housing strategy. We have an aging population. These are all issues that we need strong leadership at the federal level to take that leadership, to make that investment so that provinces and municipalities can deliver those programs, can deliver those services. It's all interconnected together. And so I understand for people, I know when I was, prior to getting involved in federal politics, I was more closely paying attention to what was happening in our municipality, in our province, because there was more of a direct line there. The Ministry of Education is provincial, for example. But you cannot ignore the impact that the federal government can have in helping to make sure that people have what they need across Canada and right here in Nanaimo-Ladysmith. It makes a big, big difference. That's the first thing that comes to mind. The second thing is that when you have a strong voice here in Nanaimo-Ladysmith, you get to be able to see that roll out firsthand. So when I go to Ottawa, I brag about this incredible place that we live all the time. I mean, how can we not? I really do feel it is so important that we have local representation that is strongly advocating for the people here in Nanaimo-Ladysmith and Ottawa. Ottawa is a far way away. And we know that there's a lot more seats in Ontario, a lot more seats in Quebec than we have here in British Columbia. And so it is so important that we elect somebody in this riding who's going to give it their all and, who has their hearts in it for the people here in Nanaimo-Ladysmith to go to Ottawa and make sure that we are getting those programs and services that make a big, big difference here in Nanaimo-Ladysmith.
I'm grateful for the local context being heard in Ottawa, but so often we have heard, and again, this is me just as a gentle pushback because these are people, these are the voices in my head that I hear from others that say,
Yeah.
"What's the deal?" Right? And so, a kind of a difficult question in the sense that people say that when you're in the federal government and you're on the East Coast, it's all about the East Coast, right? It's
Mm.
all about that, and here in the West Coast and Alberta and British Columbia, we're just they don't care about us. Uh, is that true? I mean I know that it's not true. Intrinsically, I know it's not true.
Yeah.
But I know that that's a question, and people feel that their needs are not met or heard. Um, what do you say to that?
I hear their concerns, and I mean
Yeah.
this is the root of why I wanted to get involved in federal politics. So I appreciate you bringing this up. It is frustrating for sure with so many representation. There's so much representation from around Ottawa area there, but I really do think that there is a lot of impact and a lot of reasons why the West Coast, when we have strong representation, people are paying attention. Now, just an example. So, because I was part of a party with the NDP that has official party status, that gives me the opportunity to make sure that I have, a space in the chamber to be able to speak consistently. I'm
Mhm.
part of at least one committee. When you have official party status, they basically give you certain seats and certain times to be able to ask questions to participate in the democracy. And one of my roles was I've been the NDP critic for Fisheries, Oceans, and Canadian Coast Guard. Now, I'm trying not to get too in the weeds here, but we're currently, and again, I don't know what this is going to look like after the next election, but we're currently in a minority government. And I will say, I do love a minority government for certain reasons. One reason is that people are forced to work together. You have to work across
Mhm.
party lines in
Yes.
order to get things done. And I think that that's key to strong representation here on the West Coast. The ability to work alongside people who have different political opinions, people from different parts of the country. We have a large, diverse country. And to be able to bring to their attention the issues, why it matters, and get them on your side to help advocate for those issues to be heard in the chamber. And when you get other people on your side, they really do stand alongside you. I had members of parliament across party lines that because of the work that I was doing, because of me advocating to them both in the chamber, in the committees, outside of the committees, around the derelict and abandoned vessels that we have sinking along
Yes.
and polluting along our coast, I was able to get all members to agree that we would have this as a priority study in the Fisheries Committee. I was able to bring up representation from Nanaimo First Nations into Ottawa to be able to hear directly from them around the implications of these derelict and abandoned vessels along our coast. We had witness after witness from the West Coast having their voices heard to be able to draw that picture for people around what's happening on the West Coast, because they don't know in Ontario. Yes, they have similar problems in their lakes and in their rivers, but it's different. We're getting hard hit along the West Coast. And so that's just one example that when we do have a member who is advocating and working across party lines, that there is limitless, unlimited, I should say, not limitless. Limitless,
Unlimited
perhaps that is the right
opportunity.
word, actually.
Well, I think limitless meaning the opportunity is wide
There
and
you go. Wide open.
so
That's what I'm trying to say.
so wide open,
Yes.
which is a brilliant, brilliant thing.
There's lots of opportunities for our voices here in Nanaimo-Ladysmith to be heard, and that strong representation makes a big difference to be able to have it heard more so. Yeah.
A lot of people are frustrated with the amount of taxes and the high
Mm.
cost of living and
Yeah.
of course, in the United States, the big thing is about the a dozen eggs, and frankly, we're feeling it over here as well. One of my family members came home recently and said that they were at a store and they saw us the eggs, free range eggs, mind you, that they thought that they were $14 a dozen. Well, as it turns out, they're not. That's not what it is in Canada. It is what it is in one store in the United States. So there was a conversation. So there was some mixed messaging about what happens. But nonetheless, the price of groceries is out of this world for so many people on limited income. If your party is not a minority and doesn't get in, and the other guys have a say, um, is they brag about the taxes coming. It's not that simple, I guess is my question. It's not that simple that one party comes in and the taxes are this, and another party comes in and the taxes are that, and the dropping of the carbon tax and all these different things that are part of the conversation. So I guess my question is to you, if I vote, for example, for yourself, and I mean, I adore you.
Mm.
If I vote for you, how does my vote count? Because you're not the party of the lead right in the moment. You're, as you said, you're part of it, right? It's a combined Liberal and NDP role. Will that be the same? Will that change? What does that look like? And I don't know if my question came off very clearly, but I'm hoping you got the gist of it.
Yeah, I have so many thoughts around everything that you've said there. Okay, so first thing, just for some historical context, here in Nanaimo-Ladysmith, we're a bit of a unique riding because we have our roots here. We have NDP roots. We've had strong NDP representation. Some areas, depending on how the ridings have been distributed, have been conservative as well. And then also we've had Green representation
Yes.
here in this riding, which of course we haven't had a lot of Green representation across Canada. So that's a bit of a novelty for our riding. This next election, we know coming up is going to be, here in this riding, is going to be a tight race between both the NDP, which is the party that I represent, and the seat that I will be, I'll be the candidate for the NDP again, and the Conservatives. Those are the two primary parties that are going to be going against one another in the next election. And so it is a bit different. It is important to look at your specific riding and who's running in that specific riding, and understanding I always believe that you should vote for the candidate that you feel is going to push for your values, that it's going to push for what you think is important. That is so important. And also looking at what the party that they're part of is saying, and looking at the way that they have voted is so important, because
Mhm.
I don't know about you, Kathy, but I'm pretty tired of hearing people saying one thing during an election, but then doing the complete opposite
Totally.
once they're elected. And so I think it's really important to look at, what the party is saying, but also looking at the voting history. Just one point around, you'd mentioned the NDP Liberal thing. I just want to point out, so this is, remember I was talking about how important it is to work across party lines?
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what that was. That was called a supply and confidence agreement. And I know federally these aren't as common, but we have seen them in provinces where basically parties who have different opinions on how things should be done decide, you know what, these are the things we can agree on, and these are the things we're going to work together on in order to see them moved forward with.
Mhm.
But throughout that, the party that I was part of remained an opposition party. We still held the Liberals to account for the things that weren't in that supply and confidence agreement. We still managed to get things put through that weren't in the supply and confidence agreement. And so it was one part of our time together. But ultimately, just to rein it back in here, the most important thing that I think needs to be paid attention to at this time, when so many are struggling to make ends meet, is the fact that while people are struggling to pay for groceries, to keep food in their fridge, to feed their families, we have seen, I'm going to bring it up. Galen Weston is one example. The CEOs of these large grocery corporations making profits and excess profits of far beyond and beyond being able to just
Yeah.
keep things afloat, at the same time as increasing the prices for people that are struggling to make ends meet. And so we really do need, these are the practices that we see in many different areas in our day-to-day lives, where we have a government that's providing subsidies or allowing tax loopholes or not implementing a fair taxation system, or holding to account when we have corporations that are gouging Canadians through price fixing. These are all things that can make a big difference. One thing I've noticed is that I'm 45 years old. I'm not very old, but I definitely was from a generation where it was embedded in me that these corporations, there's a trickle down impact that they benefit our entire communities. That by supporting them, we're supporting our communities. We know this isn't true.
Not at all.
Yet I was educated and socialized to believe this. So
For
sometimes
sure.
even me, I feel like it's an indoctrination of supporting the profits of allowing people to make excess profits at the expense of everyday Canadians. While their taxes are still high,
Mhm.
the large corporations are not paying their fair share. We need to be looking at, how do we have a taxation system that allows people to make the most out of their hard-earned paychecks, while also making sure that we have those who are making excessive profits paying their fair share. That money can be used towards housing, towards healthcare, towards making sure that groceries are affordable. These are the things that money should be going towards. There's a reason we pay taxes. We pay taxes to make sure that we are the country that we can be proud of, to make sure that we are taking care of one another, to make sure that we have programs and the services in place that people can access healthcare with their care card and not with their credit card.
Yeah.
These are the things that we believe in as Canadians, and those are the things that should be used for our taxes. And so I do believe that we need to pay taxes, but let's pay taxes fairly. Let's reasonably pay taxes and see the government using those funds in the way that they should be, which is by lifting up Canadians and making sure they have what they need to live happy, healthy lives.
I don't ever want to come to a place where I sound like I like or support anything that is going on in the United States as we know it in this moment. However, they've shaken the core of interprovincial conversations and trade. And, as negative as that is, and as awful as that is, it is forcing us actually to take another look and to really pay attention to some of our own practices, some of our buying Canadian, some of our sharing of the resources across interprovincial lines where we weren't able to do so before, to really sort of souse out and set ourselves up so that we're more successful. But what I hear a lot of, and this is, partially from people that are young and partially from people that are old. Somewhere there's that in between, but a lot
Mhm.
from the youth and a little bit better than youth and for the seniors. And they seem to be either unable to get into the housing market at all,
Yeah.
or they're on their way out of life and they're losing the amount of money that they have in their pensions. And people are just tired of paying, paying, paying.
Yeah.
How do we make sense of this narrative, especially while the narrative that's on television that we're hearing is backbiting against the people as opposed to the problems? What's your take on how we can move forward with that in a much more like how do we dismiss the rhetoric so that we can get to the problem?
Yeah. Absolutely. There was a lot of pieces in there. So first thing, that the personal attacks. I just need to comment on that first.
Yes.
So to be clear, I will always hold representatives to account for their behavior, for their votes. I always love a good debate about how do we get to this end result that we're wanting to get to. At the core of so many of the discussions I have with people who agree with me, disagree with me, we could be on complete opposite ends of the spectrum politically. And I find that 8 times out of 10, 9 times out of 10, we often have that same desire, that same end goal. Is just how we get there that's
Yeah.
different, right? There's so much more that unites us than divides us. I can't say that enough.
So true.
So the personal attacks, the demonizing of people who have put their names forward to represent Canadians, it's highly problematic for so many reasons. I'm not answering all your questions at once, but I just need to focus on this for a
No, no,
second.
I'm glad you
And
are. Pick
yeah,
and choose and take the pieces.
that's right.
Nothing wrong with that.
Currently, Kathy, there's only 30% of all those elected into federal government are women. There's also an
Mhm.
underrepresentation of who we see in our communities, an underrepresentation of Indigenous people, of 2S LGBTQIA plus people, of Black Canadians. We're not seeing, when we look at the House of Commons, of those who are elected to the House of Commons, we're not seeing a representation of who we have in our communities. And that 30% women, I will say, is the highest that it's ever been. So I guess we have a slight improvement of where we first started when all these rules came into place in the 1800s, when you see that picture of the fathers of Confederation with,
Of course.
all of the men that are all white men,
All right, men.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, for
they
sure.
are. A few things have changed since then. Like women can
Yeah.
vote, women can participate in our communities. They've always participated in our communities, but you know what I mean.
I
They
know
they are
exactly what you're
able to
saying.
get
Yeah.
elected into parliament.
Yeah.
And so the demonizing of people who put their names forward, regardless of their political beliefs, is highly problematic because it's a deterrent for more people to want to get involved. It's a deterrent for people who have families at home, who want to go in for the right reasons to participate. And so I try really, really hard to not participate in the demonizing of individuals. And I will say that that's a trickle effect of US style politics that we
Agreed.
are seeing brought here into Canada. There's been I've seen firsthand the shift in increased divisive politics, increased personal attacks, demonizations, divisive politics all around since, and I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, since Pierre Poilievre has become the leader of the Conservative Party. He uses the same tactics, he says the same things, he does the same style of politics that Trump does, down to a T. And those who participate in that with him are, you could see them get closer and closer around him in the House of Commons, surrounding him
Mm,
in the chamber. And it is frightening to see. It's frightening to see people that I know are anti-choice standing up in the House. People who have denied residential school, residential school denialism. I'm sorry to say it, but Pierre Poilievre himself has had some very unfavorable comments about Indigenous people during his time under Harper as a minister. I don't want to repeat them because I don't want to spread hate. But
agreed.
these are the things to pay attention to. This is, again, it's not, we're not separate from what's happening in the United States. We have our own version of it happening right here. And so I'm calling out Pierre Poilievre specifically, not because I want to demonize him, because I want to hold him to account for the hate that he is spreading, for the division that he is spreading, for picking on the most vulnerable people in our communities, trying to peg people against each other, distracting from the fact that we know historically when conservative governments are in parliament, when we look at what they're saying right now, they are not there for the workers. They are not there for the everyday people. They are there for their billionaire corporate friends. That's what they do. They gave 60 billion in corporate handouts while Harper was in power. 60 billion. So it's really important that we are calling out and holding to account when people are not doing what they are meant to be doing, which is representing the people,
Yeah.
not the
Yeah.
profits,
No, I'm with
but the
you.
people in our communities,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're doing great. Like I just
All
because
fired up, Kathy.
well, you know what, and that's what I want you to do. I want you to be fired up because I want people to get it. I mean, I've had these arguments at my dinner table as much as everyone else has, right? And I think that when we come to this place where we can debate and we can have our point of view and we can share our point of view and come out on the other side being respectful and kind through
Exactly.
all of this process, then and see each other's point of view. But the problem that I have with the politics right now is that in the desire to win and desire that people have not to keep paying such exorbitant taxes for what they're taking home, that their head is going in the sand. And therefore, my fear is, and this is personal, my fear is that we will have a government that because we didn't do our research, we'll have our own version of Project 2025.
Yeah.
And I don't want to elect somebody on the backs of the people I love, people that I know that are trans, people that I've grown up with that have a different way of being, First Nation communities from all around Nanaimo and Ladysmith area and anywhere else for that matter. So I struggle with somebody else getting or pushing their agenda at the expense of other people's lives. And I don't think that's okay.
Mhm.
So I guess my curiosity from your point of view is when these people are behaving in this way and you're having to stand up for us because you're the person in the room, what does that look like? How can you say no? We will not. This is not what what can
Yeah.
what how the how and the what's and the wherefores of difficult conversations
Mhm.
to help move the needle forward for change or to keep the narrative a truthful one.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, so many thoughts. First of all, this is why I love knocking on doors, Kathy, at
Yes.
the root of what you're talking about right here. I love knocking on doors because you never know who's going to be on the other side of that door. And I find that that's just such a good sense of what's happening in the community. But also, I meet people that disagree with me wholeheartedly, right? And when I do meet somebody there, it is always so I say to people, if I was talking to people in my own echo chamber that agreed with me every single day, I would never be expanding my thinking. I would never be able to have a stronger legislation, to push for stronger. When we have different opinions and we come together and have those conversations, that's how we improve the legislation that actually helps more people across Canada. That's how we get there. And so I have really important discussions with people at the door. The conservatives have a lot of money behind them and they invest a lot into adversarial messaging and advertisements in social media, on the TV, billboards, everywhere you look, there's adversarial messaging, which means again that people in the positions are often being demonized and dehumanized. And I can tell when that's happened. When I go to a door and, I spoke with a man just recently who was so angry at me that
Mm,
he was just so lividly mad at me that he was almost welling up in tears. And I could tell what was happening. He just was, he couldn't believe A, that I was at his door, and B, he didn't know where to begin. He was so angry with me. He didn't know how to, where do I start? And so I took the time to patiently just try to hear him out and try to pull out, what is it that you're angry about? What can I do to help you? Even if I can help you with it, can I hear your concerns so that I can, take that with me in my work? And I will say by the end of that conversation, no, he's never going to vote for me. No, he's never going to be my supporter. But I feel like we had that human, that time to have a human conversation
mhm,
about
mm.
some of the things that mattered to him. And I could see that tension level had reduced significantly by the time that we shut that door. And, that was huge for me. That small amount of time that I was able to spend with that person who disagreed with me, I really feel makes a big, big difference, because we're reminding people that we're human beings that are trying our best to represent the people here. That I'm trying my hardest. I've been here. I live here. This is my home. My children are here. My family's here. I know what it's like to struggle. I understand that so deeply. And I understand that we want somebody to blame, and I'm in this position now. But I'm here to listen and to try to advocate for better. It's not going to be solved overnight. This is generations and
Yeah.
generations of quite frankly, people in our communities not being put at the forefront. And so, but by having my voice there, I can bring context that isn't present in federal politics. There's a lot of privilege in federal politics. Let's acknowledge that. There's a lot of people who have been born and bred into those positions, who have a lot of money behind them, who have been, put through schooling to teach them how to be the most effective, the most polished politician. To have somebody there who's going to stumble over their words a little bit, but bring that humanness and to understand what it's like to have to be watching the cash register as each item's being put through, and taking things off and trying to decide which items to leave on the cart and which items are going to have to go back with every grocery trip. These are the things that unfortunately somebody who's been born into this incredible place of privilege, which is nice to them, but they don't understand. When you have that understanding, though, those experiences, you're going to notice things in the legislation. You're going to notice things a little bit more. And so, it's been I will say, it's been a frustrating experience come from my background to go into this place of incredible privilege. I feel like I'm just, getting red in the face, trying to have my voice heard as much as possible. But I do see people are listening. And imagine if there were more people like me in these positions. Imagine how far we could go. And I will say, I feel like the party that I'm part of, we are a group of 25, but we have gotten a lot accomplished for that reason. If you look, we're a very diverse group. We come from a variety of different backgrounds. A lot of my colleagues understand what it's like to try to make ends meet. And I think that there's incredible power in that, uniting us to push for better, to push for a government that's taking care of people. So hopefully that answered some of your
It
questions,
answered
Kathy.
lots of my questions, and I hope our listeners have been really, really enjoying this very candid conversation. And it's, I feel very lucky because I come to this table as two friends talking about stuff, and
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to have this conversation, and for us to be able to understand. One of the pieces that I loved about what you said, though, was going to knock on those doors. I used to sell life insurance years ago, and I know exactly what it's like to knock. doors. It's quite a skill that you need to
Yeah.
have. And
I love knocking on
I
doors.
know
I knock on doors all the time, regardless if there's an election or
you
not. It
just
gives me
don't
the
know what
pulse.
people will
Yeah,
say or what they will do.
that's right. Yeah.
The part that I love from all of that, in context of what we're talking about today, is that I think that when you're with people of lived and living experience, they consistently and always teach you what it is that you need to know so that you can share their point of view in the future.
Yeah.
We have an incredible abundance of people within our community who've been through a lot, right? There were miners, there's sailors here, there's miners here, there's high-end business people in, there's snowbirds, there's you name we've got a really good eclectic kind of
Yeah.
thing going on here and along our Gulf Islands and just all over Vancouver Island. And so when I hear you take those words and then sit in Parliament, there's something that makes me feel comfortable with knowing that you get it. You're
Hmm.
taking the voices of all of those people to chamber and to say to them, hey, oh, excuse me, wait a minute now. Just before you go past that line, did you know X, Y, Z? And I think that that's critical.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I
You're
do.
right. We people want to live here
I want to live here.
that's right. We live on a beautiful island. People from around the world want to live here. It's a great place. And not only that, but we have incredible people that live here. It's been, I moved here in 1995, and to see how much Nanaimo has grown, and to see there's just such a mix of people here now. I will say, just for clarity, Cathy, for federal, the riding that I represent, it goes from Lanceville all the way to Ladysmith and
Right, of
everything in between.
course.
So it's quite big. I,
Yes.
of course, live in Nanaimo, so I say Nanaimo, but that's the case for Ladysmith as well.
Oh, for
Ladysmith
sure.
is growing so rapidly.
Mhm.
I do want to say that in the next election, the ridings are going to be changing around just a little bit. So people should look on the Elections Canada site if they're not sure who they should be voting for. But some south of Hammond Bay in North Nanaimo and Lanceville are going to be redistributed into the Courtney Alberni riding, which is frustrating. I know.
Kind of ways out of the way. Sorry
I
for
know.
our listeners that are listening to us on CHOY 101.7 FM. My eyes went crossed.
Yes.
For those who actually are watching this on our YouTube channel or wherever
Ah,
you're enjoying your podcast, my
yes.
goodness, my goodness.
Yes, it makes no sense.
It makes no sense.
It's because of the fact that it's growing so quick right now. The Elections Canada is trying to make sure that there isn't too many constituents for one member of parliament. So I understand for that reason, there's a lot more people for this riding than there should be for one member of parliament. But I did write a letter speaking out against it because it just doesn't make sense to have
Oh,
people in North Nanaimo don't connect with the riding of Courtney Alberni. They connect with what's happening here in Nanaimo, same as Lanceville. So it's unfortunate, but regardless, we'll do that work together
we'll
and
do
make
the
sure
work
that
together.
everybody is represented in whatever the outcome of the next election is.
Well, I really want to first of all take a moment to give and offer my deepest gratitude, for spending the time with me on Act Three today. Thank you so much for being on the program. I can't believe our time is almost up. We have like 2 minutes left to sort of close out. So I just want to take a quick thank you for you being here. And also for people who might want to get out and reach you and talk to you. How do people find you, Lisa Marie?
Yeah, so absolutely. So right now, as the member of parliament, I have an office down on Dunsmuir Street. So there's the city of Nanaimo, there's Sheila Malcolmson, who's the MLA for Nanaimo Gabriola. My office is right in the middle there. But social media, email, they can phone the office. These are all ways to get a hold of me. I do want to reiterate that when the election is called, I then move from being the member of parliament to the candidate running in the election to become member of parliament. And so I'm unable to do the work as member of parliament at that time, but I made sure that my office is still there and still open to help people. The entire all of the needs don't stop in our community during an election. And so I just want to make sure that people are aware that we are on reduced schedule and I have a reduced staff, but I will make sure that my office is still open to be able to help people on nonpartisan issues while the election is happening. So I just want to reiterate that we're not gone. We are still here to, well, not me during that time, but my team is still there to help people as required if they have issues with immigration, passports, Service Canada, those things. If they're having barriers in being able to see, what they need done, just give us a call or send us an email, and we can see and they can see what they can do. Sorry, I'm so used to saying
I
we.
know,
It's
right?
going to be a weird transition. But
The good news is the prayer is that you will be elected once again, and that's always the hope for sure.
I
Uh,
would love that. It would be my honor to continue on in this position. I can say that with 100% certainty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm grateful that we've taken the time to talk. And again, a reminder that this was recorded before an election was called. If you're hearing this during that time frame, please just keep that in mind that that's what's happening. And if you hear us a little bit later on, because Lisa Marie has got so much that she has been able to glean for, wisdom all the way through all of this, and I am always happy to share her wisdom and all the wonderful things that she does within the community with all of you listeners. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for being on Act Three today. I really appreciate it, my friend. We'll see you next time. Yes, as a
Thank you,
winner, you
Cathy.
got it.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time on Act Three.